1961, something was born that changed the movie and gaming experience forever. And that one thing was CGI. And that's the point of today's documentary. CGI stands for computer generated imagery, by the way. CGI has a couple different names and a lot of different uses. For example, all 3D animated movies, VR, motion In 1961, something was born that changed the movie and gaming experience forever. And that one thing was CGI. And that's the point of today's documentary. CGI stands for computer generated imagery, by the way. CGI has a couple different names and a lot of different uses. For example, all 3D animated movies, VR, most special effects, some commercials, TV shows, traditional photography, advertisements, engineering, and even art are all CGI. The fun fact, the first instance of CGI in a feature-length film was in the opening scene of a movie called Vertigo, which was directed by Alfred Hitchcock in 1958. The scene was made by two men named John Whitney and Saul Bass. The scene was of multiple spirals coming in and out of sight, causing a sickening sensation. Alfred Hitchcock also made an effect called the vertigo effect. The effect is done by portraying the foreground as a still image and the background grows or shrinks. John Whitney had made the first motion control photography with a computer he got. This then would be the first instance of CGI being used in a feature-length film. The first ever 2D CGI software was called Sketchpad, made in 1963. It was made by a man named Ivan Sutherland. It mostly was just meant to be a PhD thesis, and the people who made demonstrations called it a graphical language instead of a software. We're going to show you a man actually talking to a computer by Stephen Coons, 1963. After this, we have a brand new era of CGI, where they finally made it 3D. The first 3D CGI animation was made by a man named Edward E. Jacques, who was an engineer for a place called Bell Labs. He made a short video of the globe spinning with clock and time imagery all around it. But, before all that, we're going to need to go into a new era of CGI. The era of video games.
CGI isn't just used in film, it is also used in every video game since the 70s. So to tell you the full history of CGI in games, it would be the same as telling you the whole history of video games in general. Also, although all games could be considered CGI, it took until the 90s when it would actually incorporate 3D CGI, like most people are calling CGI. The first game to incorporate 3D CGI was a game called Maze Runner. The game was made by using a 2D graphics in a 3D environment. Then Nintendo made the Super Effects in 1993 that used simple bitmap pictures for the SNES to handle, but it wasn't quite 3D. It would take 2 more years after the Super Effects for Nintendo to actually use real 3D instead of trying to make something that looked like it. In 1993, Nintendo started developing the first console to actually have 3D graphics and one that could actually handle it instead of crashing. Finally, after 3 years of work, many sprites, lots of unused content, the N64 was released. The N64 had some hit games upon release, had stuff like Super Mario 64, Mario Kart 64, Donkey Kong 2 and 3, and The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time. All these games made Nintendo hundreds of millions of dollars. Of course, with this success, there would be other people who would want it. So Sony had released its first console with 3D graphics, the PlayStation. And then after her 5 years of those two battling it out, how Microsoft went into the market, hit with the Xbox in 2001. Now we're here with CGI technology in video games. It got even more advanced with less polygons and more advanced graphics, more pixels and more contents. Even indie developers can work with CGI in their games.
Now, if we're going to make a documentary on CGI, it would be a crime not to mention CGI in movies. So to start us off, let's bring up CGI in the movie Westworld. Westworld came out in 1973, and it's the first movie to combine CGI with live action.
Next up is Young Sherlock Holmes. Young Sherlock Holmes was the first full-length movie to feature a computer-generated character. To achieve this effect, they used the stained glass knight jumping out of the window, which was animated by John Lasseter in 1985. Next up, the original Jurassic Park. The original Jurassic Park movie was released in 1993. It had a massive role in the evolution of CGI because of those memorable dinosaurs. The dinosaurs from Jurassic Park are famous because they were revolutionary in CGI technology. There are around 30 minutes of CGI in all of the movies combined. The dinosaurs were actually puppets, but they would use CGI to simulate the movements of the dinosaurs. Next up, bullet time. One of the most famous shots of CGI was in the movie The Matrix. The shot we're talking about here is bullet time, or as most people know it, the shot where the guy dodges bullets falling down in slow-mo. This beauty of a shot was made by having the main character in a harness as the camera is attached to a green screen board, take fast pictures of him and layer them onto one another to make the shot.
The best CGI in the world comes from America. Countries use CGI in animations in different ways. For example, America uses it in scenes that can't be shot using other kinds of animation techniques. But Japan uses it for mostly fight scenes, fast-paced scenes, and little details that it can't make look the right way. Beyond 2000, CGI accelerated at a never-before rate. One of the reasons for this is because of the need for computer power and more relatable software, with Lord of the Rings Gollum to be one of the first CGI characters to interact with real actors. Another thing that was made around this time is something called match move, which is a form of CGI that helps the animator import their 2D or 3D animation into the movie so you can get a mix of live action and animation. And usually this is done after the VFX or FX department finishes with the live action part. The FX department is responsible for making the effects in a movie like lighting, water, fire, and a lot more. Casper the Friendly Ghost was the first fully generated character. Him and his uncles were all done in CGI, but after it was made, Pixar released its magnum opus. Toy Story, the first fully fledged CGI animated movie, was a world-renowned hit. It went on to win many awards. One thing John Lasseter had to say with those awards was, Toy Story was a labor of love that took over 4 years to complete. Then Pixar went on to make innovations like fur, water, and many other things. Pixar played a crucial role in the history of CGI. In this segment, we'll take a look at what a crucial role they played. In the summer of '86, Luxo Jr. was the film that the main mascot of Pixar was first in. It and the film share the same name. Luxo Jr. was made with a team of 40 people working at Pixar, and yes, it's the same year they named the company. In that same year, Steve Jobs purchased Pixar from George Lucas, but Pixar didn't start with Luxo. His first ever film was made a 2-minute short called The Adventures of Andre and Wally B. It was a short with a boy named Andre waking up to see a bee right in front of him. This bee was called Wally B and proceeded to annoy Andre until Andre distracted him and ran. CGI itself is a turning point in both technology and animation. It proved that you can create worlds with just a computer. This technology is used by many different people across the world. There is so much that wouldn't be possible without them. Or every movie, game, and little video would be crazy expensive to make. Because back then, animators had to hand draw every background, every character, every setting, all by hand. Stuff that wouldn't never be possible to see, made by people like you and me, people who just want to make the world a little bit more fun.